C'est qui? Qui? C'est Kikina Studio.
Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of JINS Podcast, the very first podcast that tackles love, sexuality, feminism, and gender with Arab and or Muslim identities. Islam honors and protects women and grants them full rights. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "In this world, women and perfume have been made dear to me, and my comfort has been provided in prayer." However, many Muslims and Muslim governments appropriate Islamic texts just to justify discrimination against women and to impose social and legal restrictions on women's rights and freedom. Also, Western Islamophobic neo-Orientalists use these popular yet traditional misogynistic readings of Islam to support their xenophobic claims against Islam and Muslims, especially Muslim women. Also, the Quran mentions the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, in which some city inhabitants demand sexual access to the messengers sent by God to the Prophet Lot. They were angels, basically. The Quranic story is almost the same as the version in the Bible, though later explanations of the Quran agreed that the abomination alluded to by the Quranic passages was attempted sodomy, specifically anal intercourse between men, but many other readings show that rape is the abomination, not sex between men. The sins of the people of Lut later became proverbial, and the Arabic word for the act of anal sex between men even became luti in the Middle East. Some modern gay and lesbian Muslim activists disagree with the equation of this rape story with homosexual relationships. Scholars point out that Muslims' views on sexual diversity have become much more conservative in the last century, while Islam has for centuries been much more tolerant than Christianity. In addition, colonialism and opposition to Western exploitation has created a general reluctance against many things that Muslims consider Western and corrupt. So homosexuality is then used as an argument to show how corrupt the West is. But that doesn't stop people from being who they are. Gay, bisexual, and lesbian Muslims have become increasingly visible in recent years. They often say that we should not condemn each other and that Allah Himself has created diversity. According to a recent survey by Public Religion Research Center in the US, more than half, 52% exactly, of American Muslims agreed that society should approve of homosexuality. Good news is, many female LGBTQ imams like Annie Zonneveld, Amina Wadoud, Mohsin Hendricks, Ludovic Mohammed Zahed, El Farouk Kaki, or Daya Abdullah are paving the way for better rights for women and LGBTQIA+ Muslims around the world. So I'm very happy to have this important talk today with one of the most inspirational human beings I have ever encountered, another female imam, and her name is Seyran ATEŞ. Seyran was born in Istanbul, Turkey, of a Turkish mother and a Kurdish father. She moved to West Berlin at the age of 6 with her traditionalist family. She then became a lawyer and started fighting for women's rights. She basically devoted herself her whole life to helping Turkish-background women achieve their rights in Germany. She was also nominated for the Nobel Prize in 2005. She opened the Ibn Ruschd-Goethe mosque in 2017, located in a church, leading the way as a woman imam. It is the only liberal mosque in Germany today. Yet, she keeps on fighting for Muslim women's rights and Muslim LGBTQI+ rights. My dear Seyran, danke schön and teşekkür ederim for accepting my invitation.
Schön. Ja, seve seve.
You have done so much pioneering work to make Islam more inclusive in Turkish-German communities. You founded the first and only liberal mosque in Germany. So can you please tell us more about the specificities of Turkish Islam? I know it's influenced by a local Islamic tradition called Alevism, which is not Sunni and not Shia either. So basically, can you tell us if Islam lived and practiced by Turkish people in Germany is different from the Islam lived in the Middle East, for example?
Yeah, the majority of Muslims in Turkey is Sunni. And they are really close to traditional Sunni Islam, and much more concentrated to maybe Egypt and to Saudi Arabia, or to Iran anyway, not. It's because it's Shia. We have really less Shia people in Turkey. And also the Alevis are a minority under a lot of pressure for centuries. So you can say that the state Islam is modernized on one side because of the laicity in Turkey. But at the same time, in the last 10, 15 years, we have Sunni Islam, which is more and more close to the Muslim Brotherhood, to a very orthodox and traditional way of practicing Islam. Turkey has a huge influence to the Turkish people living in Germany because of their direct connection, religious speaking, direct connection from the Turkish government with his Ministry for Religious Affairs, and connected to the mosques here in Germany. So Turkey, clearly speaking, Turkey paid and pay for the mosques, and especially for the employers. So the people who are working here in Turkish mosques or in Turkish-speaking mosques, the majority of them, they are employers and paid by Turkey. That means there is a huge influence, and they are not independent. They depend on what the politics is in Turkey. Yeah. What I learned in the last 10 years is that on one side, Turkey is very conservative and very traditional when it comes to the hadith, for example. So I read and I learned in the last something like 10, 20 years that Turkey and Iran producing a lot of hadith. So they love to have new hadith daily. You can register a new one. And so you can say, my God, so where all the hadiths are coming from? And especially because the other countries don't know so much hadith like the Turkish ones come. So they are very good in writing hadith and following the hadith. They love it. This is one thing what we can say about Turkey. And but on the other side, as much as a lot of people are really conservative and traditional, the same time, we have a huge number of Turkish people who are extremely liberal. So I grew up, when I was a child, I grew up in a family which was religious, kind of a clan, you know. So I grew up with the idea that, and this is what our adults teach us, that Islam means you have a direct connection to God. And I grew up with uncles and cousins, and female and male, who were not praying 5 times a day, and who are not always going to the mosque. And I had uncles who drink alcohol, for example. And issue of alcohol is a very big difference between the Arabic Islam and the North African Islam, maybe, because Turkey has its own beer, own brand, you know, and we have our own rakı. So you can say that Turkey is on this point extremely liberal, and we have very special wine, red wine. My uncles and relatives, most of them, they could have dinner with alcohol and go to the mosque next day for Friday prayer. That doesn't mean that they preach for alcohol. Don't misunderstand me. I realized that there could be a very calm Islam, like in Turkey, compatible to democracy and laicism.
You said it's quite conservative and traditional. It's fascinating because Turkish Muslims often brag about a more spiritual Islam linked to the fact that Sufism was deeply rooted in Konya, which is in Turkey, which is also Jalaluddin Rumi's city. For our listeners, Rumi considered one of the greatest mystic and poet of all time. Also, love is very central in Sufism.
This is really a very good point. Konya, this is the city where the great Sufi Rumi came from and where we get all the poems from him. And it's full of the spirit of Sufism on one side. But on the other side, Konya is well known for a very, very old school Islam on the other side. And so that I sometimes ask myself, so do these people know what kind of man Rumi was? And do all these people really read and understand his poems? A lot of alcohol is going on behind the doors. And the explanation is that education was never end up with the idea of tolerance and acceptance of the others. The decision maker for religion, the authorities, they never accepted the plurality in Islam. And so power decided about which Islam is on the surface. So we have an Islam in Turkey, which is on the surface, which is very orthodox, which is very clear that there's only one Islam. But if you look behind the doors, you will see that in Turkey, especially in Turkey, we will have extreme plurality in Islam and a lot of people who said no to Islam. There's a huge, how you call it, hypocrisy, double standards and hypocrisy going on. And this happens more and more since Erdogan has the power in Turkey. We never had such a hypocrisy in Turkey, that much that people show up to be a good Muslim, but be so different behind the doors. They want to show that they are good Muslims. And this was never important in my childhood. It was not so important when I grew up. It was important to be a Democrat. It was important to be Republican, It was much more important to stand up for laicity than for religion. Nowadays, it's much more stand up for religion and be a proud Turk than to be human being, humanist. And so this is unfortunately the development of hypocrisy.
I'm sure that many listeners can relate to the next question I wanted to ask you. It's so hard sometimes when we feel torn between two cultures, right? In my case, Moroccan and French. In yours, Turkish and German. Have you ever felt rejected by the Turkish community, but also rejected by the German community? I don't know if it's comparable, but this is really for me a question of identity, since when I talk to bisexual people, they feel rejected by both straight people and gay people. So whenever you're in the middle, it's really hard to make biculturality an enrichment and not a type of constant schizophrenia, isn't it?
Erdogan and his followers are calling for more national ideas and for fascist ideas. And this comes from with the idea of having just the identity of being Turk and Muslim, but Muslim comes first. So having the idea, my personality is deeply Muslim, nothing else. And this is on the Turkish side. And on the German side as well, they started to put on people like me the identity of being Muslim. This happened since 9/11, much more than before. And coming back to your question, sometimes I also felt especially in my youth, that people try to put me in boxes, or people try to put me on chairs and ask me many times, I cannot count, how I feel between the chairs. And I start thinking, so why people ask me that? Why I have to be between the chairs, between the German culture and the Turkish Kurdish culture? It's so uncomfortable. Nobody can sit between the chairs. So what I did and what I'm doing is I'm very comfortable on the German chair, and on the same comfortable on the Turkish or Kurdish chair, as a Muslim, as a mom, as a person with Turkish Kurdish background. I feel myself the same, good or bad, like a German, like with my German culture. I came to Berlin when I was 6 years old. So I mean, this is so normal that I grow up with the kind of transcultural identity. I don't suffer with my identity. I feel really good with my German part of my identity and my Turkish and Kurdish part. But this takes time. It took a lot of time to stand up and be really proud and strong with my body and my soul and my words to tell all those Germans and Turkish people. So I'm sorry, if there's a problem, you have a problem. I don't have this problem.
Can you remind us the reason why you can be an imam as a woman? Is there anything in the Holy Quran that prevents you from being a leader?
I didn't find, and if you find something, please tell me. And I asked many people as well. So if you find,
I didn't find either.
anything, so please let me know. I researched for more than 10 years now, and then I realized, oh my God, my religion is really so great, as I anyway knew. But since I read more and more, since I know more and more about my religion, I'm much more in love in my religion because of this individualism in my religion, because of this plurality in my religion, and because I found in Islam we don't have the hierarchy, we don't have all this rules, what we and all this punishment, what we in general hear and listen in many mosques. So I don't find anything that forbid me to open a mosque. So, and if people are not ready, and if people don't want to call me an imam, so I said, I don't mind, you don't have to call me imam. I'm just a founder of a mosque. I opened this place, I paid for this place, the rent, and I opened the doors for the people. So just imagine, this is a place for Islam. If you don't like it to name it mosque, so it's your problem. We name it mosque. If you think it's forbidden to name it mosque, then tell me why. So if you say you are a good Muslim, if you say you are better in Quran than I am, then let's discuss and debate. So show me in the Quran all the things what you mean that I'm doing wrong. And from on this point, you can believe me, a lot of our enemies stop. They are not able to discuss. They are not willing to debate. They just start sending me death threats or sending me insults. You are wrong. You are a bitch. You are whatever. So because they don't have any good arguments, they don't have theological arguments, since they just come along with personal insults, I must be true.
Yeah, but then how do you face Muslim men who question the existence of women imams?
First of all, I don't have to prove something if I just practice very spiritual and in peace my religion. So the first thing is to ask them, so what is your problem when I just open a room, I'm in this room and I say, Alhamdulillah, Muslimanım. So why do you have a problem to leave me alone with my maybe stupid idea? So if you think this is a stupid idea, so what's wrong with you that you feel disturbed by my practice? This is one thing. So I don't have to prove any human being that I'm a Muslim. I have to prove that to God. So if you are a good Muslim, so you should know that I don't have to prove to you what I'm doing. So this is God who has the right to ask me. This is one thing. And the other thing is, if I'm bisexual, if I'm a liberal Muslim, that doesn't mean that you have to be the same. So why you are so afraid? Maybe you will copy paste by me. It's not that you give me a hand or you look in my eyes and suddenly you are a lesbian or a gay or a bisexual person or liberal person. So if I don't wear a headscarf in the mosque and I preach to my congregation, that will never ever happen, that because of my acting, you turn to a liberal Muslim. So nobody forces you. Why you force me? And in our religion, forcing people for anything is forbidden. This is and I try also to explain them. Okay, you say for a man, it's not easy to sit in front of a woman while she's preaching, because you listen to a very beautiful voice of a woman, and it could be sexualize the situation for you. So this is also your problem. If you are not able to sit in the same room with men and women and don't think about sex, so it's up to you, especially in a mosque. You should be able not to sexualize the situation. Again, nobody is forcing you to go in a mosque where a woman is praying or preaching or calling for the pray. If you speak bad about me and if you are lying about me when you don't know me really, so you should know as a good Muslim that defamation is a worse sin than many other. And so I try to catch them with theological arguments, because this is the only way how we could discuss. Everything else is just hate. Everything else is just simple hate. And I cannot stand up and fight against poor hate. And coming to the point of hate, the only solution what I can see is that make some anti-aggression courses with them or workshops or whatever, and tell those people it's hate and you should go to psychiatry or to make a therapy and ask yourself why you hate people so much, since love is so much easier. And answer with love. So, and I try.
Or answer with love.
This is what I try to do. Answer with love and say, okay, hate is really not healthy. If you love people, if you are good to yourself, love yourself, you can love others. If you are bad to yourself, then you are bad to others. If you are bad to me, so I have much more the imagination that you are really bad to yourself. Please take care about yourself. This is what I try to do, to say, and please these people to look in the mirror and ask themselves, what is my problem? Why I hate so much? And why I could cry about my life? And then please find solutions that you will maybe have a better life than sending me ugly and unlogical emails.
So you're obviously not fighting Islam. On the contrary, you're fighting for progressive Islam and against patriarchy. So what are the main ideas you're fighting for? What women's rights should be reclaimed in the Muslim communities of the world for you?
First of all, when I fight for gender equality, then I fight against sexualizing women and putting on the body of women all the understanding of honor, what a lot of Muslim men and societies and families have. Please stop looking for or finding the honor of the entire family between the legs of the women. Please stop sexualizing women just because they are women. So our brain has the same quality and we are the same intelligent than men can be. So this is what the Muslim countries should accept. I don't just look to Islam when I'm talking about feminism and about women's rights or gender equality, LGBT rights. As a believer and as a Muslim, I also look to the other religions, and I look also to other views to the world, so means ideologies. It's not just that we are all believers here in this world. So looking to Europe, 100 years ago, the Muslim community was not that big. Looking back to the history of gender equality in Europe, in Germany, in France, we will see a tableau of a picture of patriarchy and women under pressure and discrimination and no equal rights. This year, we will have the 100-year anniversary that the first woman was allowed to register as a lawyer in Germany. This year, we have an anniversary. So it's just 100 years ago in Germany that the woman could study law and practice as a lawyer. This is my profession. Don't look to Islam, just to Islam when we talk about patriarchy. And please look to the Catholic Church, look to the Protestants, look to the liberal Jewish people, have to stand up and fight against patriarchy together. And so if we are spiritual thinking, so we are born like that, it doesn't depend on in which religion I would born in. I would do the same as a women's rights fighter when I would be a Catholic or atheist or a Jewish. I would just stand up against patriarchy. This is what brings us together.
I had the pleasure to meet you in Paris for the International Conference on Islam in the 21st Century, where you exposed your campaign, Love is Halal. So can you share with us the prejudice around sex in Islam and the reasons why love is halal?
The headlines of the 7 prejudices, what we find out that Islam and homosexuality don't fit. The first one is that people say the Quran forbids homosexuality. If you really read the story of Lot, really read this text honestly, then you will see it's about just about men, and it's about harassment, it's about rape, it's about violence. So this first prejudice is, in our opinion, just judgments and prejudice, which is not right. Again, it's just about men. They just talk about men. So what about lesbians? What about women? So it's very logical to ask if homosexuality is haram, then it should be for everybody, not just for men. And the second point is that homosexuality, people say homosexuality is not haram, but acting out is haram. Many who describe homosexuality as haram believe that it's a test by Allah. You have to fight against it to pass the test. So we should see homosexuality as a test by God. Okay, accept that you have these feelings maybe, but don't act. And the third is Allah intend love only between men and women. So why we don't really historical, critical read and look that in the history of Islam, in every Islamic country, there are proofs for same-sex love, same-sex poetry. So the historical reality is different than people try to explain us, that it's love is just for between men and women. The first one is those who stand up for the rights of queer Muslims want to disturb Islam or destroy Islam. So I mean, okay, why why I stand up for LGBT rights in Islam, and that should be just because I want to destroy Islam. So it's not logical. Why at the same time I should stand up and say, Alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim. I want to be Muslim and LGBT. So it makes no sense to say we just want to destroy our own religion. And we open a mosque for Muslims, and we try to explain the rest of the world that there is a very spiritual, very calm, very peaceful Islam. So it makes no sense to say, because of my bisexuality, I'm going to destroy my religion. So the fifth point is there is no sexual freedom in Islam. Islam is not a prudish religion, but some people obviously are. There was a lot of poetry and poem in the history of Islam. And so why people think that we don't have freedom in Islam when Islam is not forbidding sexuality just for fun? So our religion never, ever, there's nothing you can find in the Quran or Hadith that sex just for fun is forbidden in Islam. And it's not just made for the satisfaction of men. This is the other point. It's also for satisfaction for women, and means that men never should go to a woman and have sex with a woman without satisfying her as well. There is a huge fantasy and huge positive fantasy about sexuality in Islamic countries and Islamic history. And it's not just 1001 Night, but especially when 1001 Night was told and was read in Islamic countries. In Europe, we had a very dark Middle Age. People were much more prudish than the Muslim. And the sixth point is homosexuality is a treatable disease. So we talk about LGBT and disease. The answer is for sure no. So how people are absolutely normal with being gay or lesbian or bisexual. So if you talk about homosexuality as a disease, so I mean, there cannot be something worse than that. It makes people to an object of and to creatures of being out of the society. And the seventh point is that people think there are no queer Muslims. Oh my God. Okay. So I don't know any queer Muslim. It cannot happen in my country. It's impossible. So sometimes you listen to Muslim so-called authorities. I mean, honestly, do they really believe what they say? All over the world, we have queer people. So why do you think that Muslims cannot be queer at the same time? So this is a prejudice. It's not just coming from the Muslim community. It's also coming from the Western, especially from the Western. So that I sometimes wonder about the intelligentsia of the European people because of their really dark and black and white thinking picture of Islam. They think it's impossible to be Muslim and queer.
What advice do you have for the young Muslims who really want to rethink Islam? Yeah, that would be my last question. What revolution should be done inside the Muslim world so we all end up happy and so that Islam becomes in sync with modern times?
As I mentioned, that a lot of people think that to be gay or lesbian and LGBT means you are sick, as there are people who mean that it's a disease. The answer should be always why you don't try it with love, why you don't try to be lovely. When you read the Quran, you will read in 113, you will start in 113 Surah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Please read yourself and understand. Since our religion started with the word read, since our religion started with a very, very equal right couple of the Prophet and his first wife. And there's a reason why Islam came to us. And when the Prophet came and when the Prophet get the first surah and angel Gabriel tells him to read. So it was not like now we start with Islam and there's no other religion anymore in this world. So we should think about the world, about our relationships to other people, to other religions, cultures, etc., as our religion started, as a very spiritual one, as an answer against very traditional, and to read the Quran is not enough. Try to understand is what we should do. And this is what you can read many times in the Quran. Don't you have a brain? Why you don't use your brain? So please, if you are honest, then please use your brain. Each day I try to learn, and each day I learn more and more. And as much as I read in the Quran, and as much as I discuss and speak to people like now with you, I realize maybe I get one answer for my question, but this answer opens 10 other questions. Nobody has the truth, and never be so arrogant to think that you know better than Allah.
We're going to wrap this up, but first, in every single episode of JINS, we debunk a myth that I've been told or that I've often heard of. So about a month ago, I was giving a speech about toxic masculinity in front of hundreds of high school students, mostly Black and Arab Muslims. And at the end of the speech, a young girl asked me, if you're a Muslim man and your child turns out to be gay, would you still love him? What would you have answered if you were me?
I would answer why you think we should ask this question. For sure, I will love my daughter, my son, my nephew, my niece, whatever, everybody, and especially my own child. This is my child, and as a mom, and as a dad, we used to love without any reason. What I mean, it's selfless. So this is the speciality to be a mom and to be a dad. So I'm sorry for those questions. I heard that many times, and many times discussions are going on that people say, oh, okay, it's easy to talk about LGBT rights, whatever, but what will happen when your own child comes out with that? And I ask myself all the time, why people really can have this question in their hand, because this is your child. This is the most deepest and most selfless love what we know. Yeah, you start singing like that when you don't accept that LGBT means identity. If you think this is a disease, if you think it's a sin, then you may think like that. But why do you think like that? And especially when it's your own child, you will see this child has, I guess it's like that, Ordinary has 5 fingers on each hand, a nose, eyes, ears. And since your child coming out, you loved this child as your normal child. So what changed was not your child. You changed in this moment. I mean, imagine, Jamal, mostly people have their coming out when they are between, let's say, 15 and 25, so, and you as a mother or father, you see your child growing, you had your child on your arms and you breathed your child, whatever, and played with your child, and you brought your child to the school, to primary school, and you helped your child to start reading or talking, swimming, whatever. You did so many things with your child, and turns to 15 or 16, whatever, or 25, and maybe studied and finished university and has this coming out. And at this point you say, oh my God, this is not possible. This is a monster. So why? It makes no sense. And again, logical thinking.
Thank you so much, Seyran. It was very inspiring. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Teşekkür. Thank you, Jamal.
And now, as usual, a few key takeaways. 1. Patriarchal traditions colored the early and dominant interpretations of the Quran. To eliminate prevailing misconceptions regarding women's rights in Islam, proper Islamic knowledge and awareness of the women by the women is essential. Alternative non-patriarchal interpretations of the Quran do exist. Muslim women's rights are attainable through Islam. Liberation must come from within the Islamic domain, and even Sharia, the Islamic law, can be used to push for gender equality. Everyone is trying to find their own way of submitting to God, but there is more than one way to be Muslim. 2. Being trans or gay or asexual doesn't make someone less Muslim. The only judge of that is God. Also, in the era of the Zan law in Italy or Don't Say Gay in Florida, reinforcing the idea that LGBTQIA plus people in the Arab world or in the Western world is some kind of lobby, this is wrong. So listen, just because your children are learning about LGBT relationships, it won't make them gay. By excluding your child, all you will do is develop feelings of hate and prejudice among them. Children don't deserve that. They deserve a well-rounded education. 3. In the Quran, specifically Surat Al-Hujurat 49:13, among other verses, God created humans from male and female principles, and despite the empirical differences among humans, based on race, gender, etc., the Quran regards them as equals and only ranks humans based on their moral choices and piety, at-taqwa. Just saying. My dear listeners, thank you very much. You'll find all the aforesaid references in the description below, as I did every single time during season 1. For the most curious minds among you, I'll put a few book and film recommendations linked to today's topic, be it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or else. Don't forget to subscribe to JINS Podcast account and to leave your questions and comments. Go subscribe to JINS Podcast on Instagram at JINS_podcast. Don't hesitate to share around every time you listen to an episode, because you should always remember that someone, somewhere, somewhat needs a new light shed on Islam, gender identity, sexualities, Arab origins, or anything that can be prone to oppression. So please do your part and pass the word around. See you next week.